Soldiers, sailors, airmen and women enlist in the armed forces for many reasons, including a sense of duty, patriotism, the adventure, travel, and adrenaline. When service members are injured or wounded and can no longer perform their military duties, they quickly find themselves removed from their team, no longer serving the purpose for which they trained.
I came back from Afghanistan in 2013, and it was kind of a trial and error of finding out, after the military, what's next in life.
Motorsports offers an opportunity to regain that sense of identity within a safe, fast-paced team environment, providing a renewed sense of purpose. Like in the military, in motorsports the goal is in accomplishing the mission, winning as a team, collectively celebrating the successes and supporting teammates through the losses. Operation Motorsport also offers virtual engagements and recovery opportunities through an iRacing league, engaging beneficiaries in a safe, competitive environment from the comfort and safety of their home. Operation Motorsport believes in the power of team, identity, and purpose.
Black and orange Ferrari. And green flag flies, we're racing. The Acura gets a great start from behind. 3 wide up the inside. Closing in on him here through turn number 2. Big slide on corner entry.
Here's, that's a big aggressive dive up the inside there from the Lamborghini. Some bragging rights here, I think, between the two. Look at that slide up ahead from Simpson. That thing was totally sideways, but he was able to catch it.
Fantastic stuff here in the M. Big chop by the 777 car off the nose of that. Saw the corner, didn't have overlap, and went right to the apex. Checkered flag, and Adam Youngblood will win the AM race in the CrowdStrike Cup Virtual Racing League and pick up a checkered flag, a wet one here at the Huntsville Range. Jimmy Morgan. The leaves are beginning to change as the fall equinox passes, and for many racing series, it marks the beginning of the end of the racing season. As September ends and October begins, racetracks around the country enjoy their final operating days of the year at full song. But in the world of sim racing, the racetracks never close. But we're still going to crown a champion soon for the 2021 CrowdStrike Cup Virtual Racing League. Tonight's round 5 from Barcelona is the penultimate race of the season, as friends and family from SRO Motorsports Group, AWS, and CrowdStrike compete with and against each other for bragging rights in Assetto Corsa Competizione. My name is Kyle Heyer, joined by Ryan Marine for the 5th of 6 rounds of the 2021 CrowdStrike Cup Virtual Racing League. Ryan, welcome back. This time, Barcelona. This is a fantastic racetrack. 40-minute race tonight with both our Pro and Am classes mixed together. 15 entries on the docket. Excited to be here.
Yeah, me too, and I'm excited about the opportunity to combine the two races into one. That should spice things up a little bit, and it is an exciting racetrack. A lot of different parts to it, a lot of different things that are quite exciting about it. The long front straightaway means some high speeds, but some tight, twisty sections as well. It's a real challenge, as we're about to see with the track map.
Yeah, here's a look at this racetrack. It's 16 corners. Of course, we're going to have the very tight chicane at the end of the lap as well, and that is a very narrow spot on the racetrack, but it all starts with the run down the front straightaway here, Ryan. A 90-degree right into a 90-degree left. Then you're going to carry some speed up a very flat turn number 3 up until turn 4. Then you're going to go downhill, descend into turn number 5, through a slight kink at 6, into the chicane at turn 7, climb up the hill again through turn 9, almost full throttle there. Drift all the way out to the edge of the racetrack into the hairpin at turn 10, then sweep through the carousel at turn number 12, and then into the chicane section 13 through 16 to finish up the rest of the laps. That's what a lap around Circuit to Barcelona, Catalunya looks like. We're going to head down to the racetrack now for qualifying. 20 minutes, Ryan, to set your quickest lap, and the fastest driver will start first.
Exactly, and also that, as usual, will hopefully keep you out of some of the carnage we tend to see in turn 1 of lap 1, and this is another one of those tracks. Long front straightaway means some pretty high speeds, but then the heavy braking zone in turn 1 compresses everybody together. course, those that qualify towards the back, that means they've gotten more time to start accelerating down the front straightaway than the leaders do. So they arrive in turn one with even greater speed than those ahead of them, and everybody just compresses there. So qualifying will be crucial as ever, maybe especially so here. I'd put this kind of along with the Nürburgring, where turn one can get pretty nasty pretty quickly. Barcelona pretty similar as far as that's concerned. So a lot of emphasis on this 20 minutes of qualifying right now.
Long straightaway that leads into that very tight right-hand first corner. Here's Josh Staffen running with HPD. Josh Staffen currently leading in the Pro Championship standings after 3 consecutive wins at Misano, Zandvoort, and Spa. His first loss of the season came at the last round at Brands Hatch, where Roman Alexinkov was able to drive away and get victory after Josh made a handful of uncharacteristic mistakes, Ryan. A handful of mistakes put him down in the order. Only finished 4th, which for a lot of drivers would be a great day, but for Josh it was definitely not where he wanted to be. So his goal this round, tonight, is to basically undo what he did at Brands Hatch and re-extend his points lead.
Well, that's right, and I think it starts here in qualifying. If you can put your car out in front, then the mission becomes that much more simple. For Alexinkov, that last round at Brands, I think that was something that we've been waiting to see from him all throughout the season. The pace has been there, the fortune hasn't, and some of that has been self-inflicted, it's worth noting, but a lot of it has not, and that was a complete performance from Roman Alexinkov in that particular outing, and I think he could take away from that it's possible. He now knows he can do it, and I think these two again will be the ones to feature towards the front. I'd be very surprised if that wasn't the case, but Bill Clark certainly won. Ian Burleson we've seen have some pace throughout the course of the season, Zach Coonan as well, among others. And so, we could have a couple interlopers up there, but typically it seems to be the Staffen and Alexinkov show, and I would anticipate that would be the case once again.
And remember that the colorations on the timing and scoring tower, now the AM drivers are not done this way, but the pro drivers have red, gray, and white number boards. The red is the the SRO and Operation Motorsports camp. The gray is the AWS drivers, and the white is the Team CrowdStrike cars. Now, Ian Burleson has been sort of carrying the flag for CrowdStrike this season in the AM race, and right now has yet to put in a lap time, but he's been carrying that banner, Ryan, and I think he's a bit due for a podium and to get himself up into winning contention in his first lap out. 1:44.589. That's about 6/10 slower than Josh Staffen, but not a bad first go.
No, certainly not. Showing some good pace there in that beautiful McLaren 720S GT3. And I think something interesting about the fact that we're combining the pros and the AMs is the AM race previously had only been 20 minutes long, if memory serves. And so they'll be stepping up into the big show and presumably running the full 40 minutes here.
Yes, that is correct. So all the drivers will run the 40 minutes tonight. Of course, we're combining both of our categories this evening. So instead of having a 40-minute pro race and a 20-minute AM, all drivers will run together in a 40-minute race to the end. Of course, there'll be points scored separately, as they typically are, but all mixed together. So in theory, you could have an AM driver go and get that overall win. We've seen enough chaos happen where I wouldn't put that out of the realm of possibility by any stretch, but with 15 minutes to go when qualifying, I think we're going to see things shake out the way that we typically do. We might have a surprise here or there, but already Staffen and Alexinkov on top of the board. Bill Clark in the Pink Pig Porsche, 4th place.
And doing a nice job there so far is Bill. He's been hanging around in the mix, it seems like, each and every one of these races, and maybe this is the one where he can break through and get the ultimate result that he's looking for. Some of it comes down to, is this a track that should suit that Porsche? I think it might. There's some of those tight, twisty corners that the Porsche should be good going through, but this track does give you a little bit of everything. Some elevation change, not a ton, but enough, and then a nice variety of corners, and so we should see certain cars excelling at different parts of the lap relative to some of their competition.
Bill Clark, of course, coming off of a 2nd place finish at Brands Hatch last time out, so has some momentum riding the wave here into Barcelona. Austin Murphy a little bit understeering through this final chicane complex, which is very tight. You see those big red anti-cut curbs. Those are no touchies, Ryan. You do not want to climb up on top of those things. They will send your car skating. You want to stay between the lines, especially in that section.
Well, I leave it to the Curbmeister to describe the curbs around this place, but yes, there's definitely a bunch of different varieties, and you see the sausage curbs, you see some of those that keep you off of from cutting the apex there at the inside of some of these corners. And yeah, definitely it's about experimentation, making sure you've had enough laps of practice in to know which ones are friendly and which ones will spit you out into the wall.
And a lot of them will spit you out into the wall here in Assetto Corsa Competizione, so leave a little bit of room for error, especially when you're chopping corners. Austin Murphy a little slidey though in the Ferrari, going to gather it back up and he'll continue. Robbie Montanola tonight running for Team SRO in the Lamborghini Huracan GT3. Now Robbie told me prior to this race that he did not intend to join the race in this car and said that he vastly preferred the McLaren and was not able to choose that. So he's sort of stuck in a car that he didn't really want to be in. So I think this will be interesting tonight to see how he adapts to that chassis.
Yeah, that will be part of the challenge. Each one of these cars so accurately modeled within ACC by the Kunos folks who do all the work behind the scenes to put this simulation together. And with that each car has a different personality, and you have to adapt your driving style to it accordingly. Some might fit you like a glove, others it might take some more effort to get your driving style to work with it. And if this is not a car that Robbie's got a lot of laps in, then yeah, this should be an challenge, and we'll have to watch and see how he does as the race progresses.
With about 12 minutes left here in qualifying, I'll remind you what we're here doing tonight. We're racing AWS, CrowdStrike, and SRO and Operation Motorsport, friends and family together in a 6-round championship. Of course, if you're not familiar with Operation Motorsport, it's a veteran-led and operated not-for-profit serving American and Canadian medically retiring service members and veterans, and was founded on the basis of 3 simple words: excite, engage, and empower. The premise is to engage service members and veterans affected by military service through motorsport activities to aid in their recovery and rehabilitation. You can learn more at operationmotorsport.org. Now, Operation Motorsport just had a get-together at Watkins Glen this past weekend. Ryan got to chat with a couple of the beneficiaries there and had some really great conversations. And we had Josh Staffen there as well. A couple of the sim racers were joining us at Watkins Glen. So it was a really cool kind of uniting moment down there in the Finger Lakes region of New York last weekend.
That's a really cool story. I didn't realize Josh was on site. I wish I had known that. I would have definitely sought him out to say hello. As many races of his as I've called, and the work that he's done to help organize some of these over the years, whether it's been here in the CrowdStrike Cup or some of the SRO official esports series races. But nevertheless, yeah, that was great to see, and the Operation Motorsports continuing to be a huge part of the SRO paddock, with service members embedded with a number of different teams in several different classes. It's just a tremendous organization, and I really applaud them for all the work that they do.
Absolutely. Here's Hamza Gulzar, top of the board at 143.5, quicker than even Josh Staffen. That's a bit of a wild card. I don't think we've seen a lot of Hamza so far this season. We've seen him in the past, and I think also the SRO America Esports Championship and GT Rivals, so we've seen him around, but not extensively this season, unless I'm mistaken.
You know, I don't remember, because I recognize the name, but I can't tell you whether or not it came from CrowdStrike Cup or from something else. But nevertheless, great to have him in the field, and clearly a lot of pace in that car. What you're seeing now is he's done the one flying lap. Now he's backing off. He's trying to make sure he's got enough space out in front of him to put in another flying lap without running into traffic, and then also making sure that all the components are up to pressure, up to temperature, talking about tires and brakes, all of that modeled very accurately within Assetto Corsa Competizione. And there's a nice little readout there available to the drivers in real time, giving them tire pressures and things of that nature, so they'll know exactly what they're working with, and if they've done the practice, they know what the ideal window is. So we'll see what Hamza has. He's on it now, coming out of that chicane towards the back of the lap. This is the pit straight here, and it looks like with 9.5 minutes left in qualifying, he's off on another flyer.
Down into turn 1, nicely grabs the inside apex curb through turn 2, very well balanced. This Aston Martin Vantage GT3 is not a car that we have the benefit of seeing yet in the GT World Challenge America Championship here in North America, but it is a very pretty race car. We do see the Aston Martin Vantage in GT4 form, and it's actually a recent winner coming off of Jason Bell's victories last weekend as well from Watkins Glen. So Aston Martin very well involved with the North American activities and looking very good, but Hamza's going to back it down, I think. Don't think he liked that first half of the lap.
doesn't look that way. Should point out that Gray Newell and Ian James
yes.
also picked up a win in an Aston, and there is a GT3 version in GT World Challenge America this year with Ian Lacey racing.
Oh, of course there
Frank
is.
Gannett and Drew Stavely.
Yes, don't let me forget those guys. That is correct. Man.
But that's their first year for that team running that car, so they've actually been really strong the last couple of weekends in the championship at Road America and then at Watkins Glen have been their best in the GT3 era for that team. And I thought Drew Stavely in particular had some really good stints running right there with some Lamborghini factory drivers who have a lot of experience in GT3 racing. And while Drew knows the racetracks probably a little bit better than some of the competition that's coming to the States to race for the first time, he is very, very new, as is the team, to the GT3. But a lot of help from Aston Martin has been propelling them throughout the season, and I think they've got aspirations to have a nice, strong finish to the year.
Absolutely. I also partial to how the Aston looks. It's a very pretty race car, as with all of them, but I think the Aston and McLaren, the British cars in particular, really speak to me with their visual language, and the Lamborghini appeals to my my ears probably more than the other cars do. But
no arguments. It's a great sounding car. I liked the V12 Aston when that was an option, and that was the previous generation, and that had a glorious ring to it, I have to say.
Here's another car with a glorious ring to it, the Bentley Continental GT3. Matt Gefeller in the number 19, currently 12th on the grid. Now this is a car that has also just rejoined our Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS Championship. Actually, nope, incorrect. The GT America Championship. I'm learning, Ryan. Got to give me a couple weeks to sort this all out. But the GT America Championship now has the Bentley running in it. Or am I wrong again?
No, you are correct. They took the weekend off.
I'm second guessing myself.
The car was at Watkins Glen. It did not run. That was part of the plan. There were conflicts involved. But TKO Motorsports, with some help from Flying Lizard Motorsports, they're running that car. Memo Gidley, former IndyCar driver. He's the one who's been selected to pilot that, and it's great to see Memo back at the racetrack regularly once again. Had a really nasty crash at the 24 Hours of Daytona a few years ago. Oh boy, it's been longer than that now, hasn't it? I think about 2015, and the recovery from that has been a long one. His return to the racetrack has been sporadic as far as pro racing goes. I know he's been involved in some coaching and things of that nature, but this is a really cool program, and it sounds like they should be at Sebring and Indianapolis, and that Bentley going for a wild ride here at Barcelona as well.
A little wide there for Gefeller, but you mentioned the accident happening a number of years ago. It was 2014, in fact, that crash was. That was one of the ones I remember watching on TV because it was so incredibly violent that it just stuck with me, and it was a shocking crash, and glad to see Memo Gidley back in the car after all this time and competing at a high level. So hope to see more of him throughout the rest of the season. But with 5 minutes left in qualifying, Gulzar still at the top of the order by about a 1/10.5 of a second over Josh Staffen, who has gone slightly quicker, but not quick enough to dethrone that number 1 Aston Martin at the top of the screen.
That's a great lap from Hamza Gulzar there to jump to the top like he did. 1.2 seconds clear of Staffen, and Alexinkov all the way back half a second behind what Gulzar has been able to do. Really remarkable. And I think Hamza thinks there's still a little bit more out there because he's been going for some flyers, then backing it off and trying again. And he's got 5 minutes left, and I'm not sure how comfortable he's sitting right now because the Staffen's got a great deal of pace on 1.2 seconds. It's not a huge margin. Doesn't take a whole lot for Staffen to find that difference and start to challenge for the pole.
0.126 seconds, so very tight at the top of the order there. With Josh Staffen sitting in the pits right now, maybe making some adjustments to go back out one more time perhaps and put himself on the pointy end for the start of our 5th round. And there he goes, rolls off the pit lane now in the Acura NSX GT3. Now, this is a twin-turbo V6 powered car, whereas Gulzar's Aston is a V8. Of course, Roman Aleksinkov's Ferrari is a turbo V8. Then Ian Burleson, also a turbo V8, but there are V10s in the Lamborghini. There's a flat 6 in the Porsche. There's all sorts of different engine layouts in GT3 racing, and that's what makes it so special, Ryan. Lots of sounds, lots of different performance benefits to each type.
That's right, and the beautiful thing about it is through the balance of performance system, each car should be in approximately the same performance window if you as a team or as a driver, have it figured out. You should be able to compete no matter which of the GT3 brands you have chosen. Each have some strengths and weaknesses. That's part of the joy of sports car racing. If you wanted it totally even, then there's plenty of spec racing series out there or single make series for you. But the beauty of sports car racing is the different sights and sounds and strengths and weaknesses over the course of a lap, and it spices up the racing a little bit when one car might be very strong in the first half of a lap, and the car it's racing against might have the edge in the second half, and that can add to opportunities for overtaking and side-by-side racing, and it tends to be quite entertaining.
Entertaining, for sure, here at Assetto Corsa Competizione. Beautiful as well. I just am always mesmerized by the graphics in this very high-end simulator. You have a look at the pedals. You can see the pedals moving, watching Burleson work the throttle here through the middle of turn number 2, watching the steering wheel. And when he makes adjustments to traction control and brake bias, you can actually watch the driver reach down and turn the handle in real time. That's just so incredible to me. And obviously Kunos has done a fantastic job replicating these cars, not only the sights and sounds of them, but also the electronics and the stability and traction control that the cars have, the anti-lock braking systems, all modeled to be accurate, to have the same sort of effects you could expect in the real world.
Yeah, they really went above and beyond. I don't think anybody would have begrudged them if, when you press the button to adjust the brake bias, that the animated hand wouldn't go with it. But they found that that's something they could add to the immersion of the whole thing, and it really does pay off. And I think, as great as the visuals are, we've talked about it before, but the soundtrack of this simulation is just phenomenal. You can close your eyes, and if you've been to a GT World Challenge race in Europe or Asia or Australia or here in the States, you'll recognize the soundtrack, you'll recognize the cacophony, and it makes you feel like you're right there in it. I think that's the one thing above all that they totally nailed with this game. And I've spent a lot of time around GT3 cars over the last 5 years or so, and I'll tell you, it sounds almost, it's as close as you could imagine to the real thing. I absolutely adore the way this game sounds.
It really is one of the most spectacular aspects of it, Ryan. Robbie Montanola really working the wheel right now through turns 1 and 2, is getting after it, trying to improve on his 9th qualifying position. As it stands, he'll get to finish this lap, but then we'll throw the checkered and throw the green flag for a 40-minute race for the CrowdStrike Cup Virtual Racing League. Of course, CrowdStrike, we've talked about their involvement with SRO and AWS. Of course, CrowdStrike providing security services for SRO and AWS, and SRO using AWS for all of its data, and AWS using CrowdStrike to secure its servers. Basically an iPad, your back, you pat, mine sort of relationship, but a triangle in a way. And it's kind of neat to see all these companies working together to bring us racing, internet security, and internet data services all in one package.
Yeah, it's a symbiotic relationship, and you'd be surprised at how much of a tie-in there is on the motorsport side of things. I think the relationship between AWS and CrowdStrike makes some sense on the surface, but a lot of the same principles apply in motorsports, obviously speed being king, but also, security being so crucial. This is high-stakes professional sport, and you need to make sure that all of your assets are secure, and all of that comes together nicely with the relationship with CrowdStrike and AWS providing cloud computing capabilities. It's amazing how much data comes off of these cars. I made a joke about it on one of the broadcasts last weekend, but the car came into the pits, and the first thing that happens is a laptop gets plugged into the race car, where in the past somebody might have come over with a wrench or something. The tool of choice before anything else now is the laptop, and so all of the data coming off the cars in real time, first of all, you have to be able to handle it. That's where the cloud comes in, and then it needs to be secure. So, yes, this is a great triangle of a relationship. Everybody feeds off of everybody else, and it's been very fruitful to this point.
It certainly has been. Of course, working together in sort of that team relationship is interesting to me, especially because the motto for CrowdStrike is we win as one, working together as a team. Of course, CrowdStrike is the official internet and cloud security provider for SRO's Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS. You can learn more about CrowdStrike at CrowdStrike.com, and more about CrowdStrike Racing in particular at CrowdStrikeRacing.com. So those are the places you should go to find out more. Qualifying is complete, checkered flag now, so drivers just finishing up their laps, and you'll note at the top of the board, Josh Staffen did edge out Golzar by 0.06 of a second.
Yeah, that 0.12, as you pointed out, 0.126 seconds. Boy, that I didn't feel like Hamza was going to be feeling all that comfortable there. But as I say that, he answers back. How about that? So checkered flag had come out, but Hamza was on his flying lap, so he's able to complete it. And just like that, goes to the top. Man, just as I was ready to crown Josh Staffen, Golzar has other ideas, and he'll take pole by 0.156 seconds over Josh Staffen, unless Josh is on another flyer here. Doesn't look like he is.
So that was Jackson Rouston coming across the line. That was not quicker than his previous best. Hamza Golzar is running with Team SRO, so he is going to be teammates effectively with Josh Staffen with the red number board showing up as white, but he is an SRO team driver. So it's going to be an all SRO Opmo team front row here for our fifth of 6 rounds this season. So that's going to be great for that team. It's going to be an AWS and CrowdStrike second row with Roman Alexinkov and Ian Burleson, Ryan. So a good mix of drivers in the front 4.
Yeah, that should be fun, and bringing Golzar into the mix really adds another talented sim racing driver to the crew. And I think, well, what we've saw here is what single lap pace looks like. We'll see what tire wear is like. We'll see what consistency looks like. And one other thing to keep in mind here, Kyle, that could spice things up a little bit. In the AM races that we've commentated on previously, it's been pretty apparent to us that some participants were not using a wheel and pedals, and they were doing a really good job, all things considered. But that could cause a completely new challenge for the pro drivers that have not seen that before when they come around and start lapping some of the slower cars, presumably some of the AM cars, as we get deeper into this race. That should keep them on their toes, I think it's safe to say.
Yeah, I think that's definitely safe to say. The difference between the pro and the AM categories is essentially how competitive do you want to take this and how fun do you want to take this. Now, the pro category was for the drivers that really wanted to have a very high level of intense competition, and the AM category was for the drivers that were more about having fun. And what that shakes out to be is that the pace difference can sometimes be fairly large, and the equipment level can sometimes be very different from each category. So as you mentioned, some of the drivers might not have a controller or a steering wheel and pedal assembly, might be using the keyboard. So that could be an interesting navigational situation for the leaders when they come around to lap in 40 minutes. And we will have lap traffic in this 40-minute race. No pit stops to worry about. We're just going to take the green flag and run all the way to the checkers, Ryan.
Yep, exactly so. So that should be a lot of fun. It's still a long enough distance, though, that you do have to think about the tire wear a little bit. That's modeled, as is so much else in this game. Another thing, too, this seems self-evident, but presumably I hope the AM drivers have thought about this prior to this. You know, their races previously have been 20 minutes long. Make sure you got enough fuel in the tank to go the full 40 minutes. That actually caught out a couple real-life teams in a TC race over the weekend at Watkins Glen, where a couple of cars ran out of fuel on the last lap. They ended up going a lap longer than they anticipated. So make sure you got all that stuff figured out and you're ready to go. But that said, without the pit stop in there, it's a relatively short race distance. It should be a full-on sprint, and we'll have to see who comes out on top.
Getting a note from Robbie Montanola about how hot the racetrack is. Looking at 39 degrees Celsius. Now, I'm a dumb American, and I can't do the conversion in my head, so I'm going to check it right now. That is, let's see, over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, 102. So that's going to be pretty hot and slick, especially in the darker parts of the pavement. And the difference is the concrete areas, such as the curbing line, will not absorb heat quite so much. So the track is going to be very slippery in some parts and not so slippery in others. And the transition and the change in pavement can sometimes be pretty jarring, especially if you get some of those marbles offline, some of that discarded rubber from the Pirelli race tires that sort of shreds off the tire over the course of a stint. All that stuff, not good. You don't want to be on that when you take the green flag.
No, it doesn't help you at all, does it? If you're not on the ideal part of the racetrack, staying off the marbles, trying to stay to a portion of the track that that has the most grip, and that's what they'll have done all their practicing for. Hopefully, they'll have practiced in conditions similar to these, and that then would prepare them for what's to come, and presumably the qualifying session temperatures and things like that will be pretty similar to what they'll deal with here, so that at least should be some preview, even if their practice prior to the event was not done in conditions that mirror exactly what we've got right now.
You can actually see on the ground, we're looking off the nose of Hamza Golzar's car. You can see the black sort of rubber bits on the ground. Those are what you call marbles. Now, I mentioned that they're sort of the shreds of the tires. Well, they basically collect on the ground and roll themselves into little balls, and when you drive over them, it's essentially like driving on marbles, and that's where they got their name. The challenging part is that Assetto Corsa Competizione models this very accurately, and you don't want to be on that. Now, here's the key. We're on a straightaway, Ryan, but they're still collected on the inside. So all those drivers on that right side row, or left side on the screen, when they take the green, you don't want to start trying to brake when you're driving on those marbles. You'll not have a very good time.
That's right. So hopefully they'll have scouted that out here on the formation lap, which will go on in about 40 seconds, as you can see at the top of the screen there. And then I think that everyone who's gridded on that side of the racetrack right now, they're going to be trying to edge over to the left as much as possible, even here on the pace lap, just to make sure they're not picking up any of that excess rubber that can stick with you for a surprising amount of time. You really have to be at speed to discard that, thoroughly at least, and so that could have an adverse effect heading into the first turn if they've not got that cleaned off completely prior to the start of the race.
So one pace lap around Barcelona before we're going to turn the field loose for the 5th round of the CrowdStrike Cup Virtual Racing League. One more of these races this season. It will happen on October 20th at Paul Ricard in France. That will be our last race of the season. Of course, this weekend we've got the SRO America Esports 12 Hours of Bathurst. Myself and a handful of others joining us for the broadcast this weekend, so I'll get a little bit of a break in the middle. But it is going to be 12 hours of racing beginning in the early morning and running all the way until basically midnight Central Time where I am. So it's going to be a long day for me, but make sure that you join us over on the GT World YouTube channel so that you don't miss a thing. 12 hours of Assetto Corsa Competizione action. Ryan, you'll be at Long Beach at another event, but I'm a little jealous of that, but I'm also probably going to have a pretty good time. Bathurst, 12 hours. That's an amazing race in real life, an amazing race in Assetto Corsa.
Yeah, that's such a fun track, and it's a challenge pretty much unlike anything left in motorsport these days. There are so many parts of that track where if you are wrong by just an inch, your day is done, and it might affect somebody else too. If they're running in close proximity, there's just no room for error. And so for 12 hours, you're really threading the needle basically for that entire duration. And it becomes a race of attrition, but these days as well, you have to have the speed to go along with the consistency. And it's a tightrope walk, that's for sure, and a lengthy one. When you're talking about half a day walking that tightrope, whoever comes out on top, they'll have earned it for sure.
Bathurst is one of those places that I don't know if they would build it now. given all the restrictions now on modern circuits, it's one of those places that's sort of grandfathered in, and it's spectacular in its own right because of the way that it, or how sketchy it is, for lack of a better term, at the top of the hill and then coming back down. It is a really cool racetrack, but very, very treacherous if you get it even a little bit wrong. Field doubling up now on the back straightaway here, and we come by the flag stand. We'll be racing for 40 minutes. Again, it's Hamza Golzar on the front row, Josh Staffen, 2 SRO Operation Motorsports teammates. Then behind it's Roman Alexinkov for AWS, Ian Burleson for CrowdStrike Racing. Then Bill Clark in behind them with the Pink Pig Porsche, Zach Koonin behind them. Koonin again, another SRO Opmo driver. Dean Benaviste in the number 75. He is lined up as a CrowdStrike driver this time through. So looks like we've got 18 drivers on the starting grid for this race. Again, Pro and Am combined. Ryan, final thoughts before we go green?
Well, already we're seeing the accordion effect throughout this field. It's been a bit of a hairy formation lap further towards the back. This is nice and tight right here, this section of the racetrack. It's not easy to be going side by side, even at these speeds. So my fingers are crossed we'll still have 18 cars by the time we take the green.
Well, cars having a couple small bumps in the background, but otherwise sorted out. Ooh, still some drivers brake checking here as we get set to take the green flag. And thankfully a long enough straightaway that'll let the field pretty much get sorted. By the time they get down to that front straightaway, that green flag Coming, and there it is. Green flag flies. The CrowdStrike Cup Virtual Racing League is green, and a fantastic start by the 75 of Dean Beneviest. 3 wide to the inside of Bill Clark's Porsche. And here comes Zach Coonan in the orange BMW down the inside. 3 wide, almost 4 wide for a moment as Staffen leads the way to turn 1.
Golzar took him to the green flag pretty slowly, Kyle, and Staffen was able to get a great jump around the outside. That was a big move from Coonan to go from 6th to 3rd there on the opening lap. But the big winner, I think, is Staffen, able to grab that lead from Golzar right off the top, and that puts Golzar on the back foot.
Staffen already leaping to the lead. That was a strong start, but it was also the Dean Beneviest in the blue and red Ferrari that had a great start, kind of put everybody off sideways there for a moment. In behind Chris Locke in the Mercedes-AMG GT3 Evo. Locke running with AWS right ahead of Robbie Montanola for now, but Locke got kind of displaced at that start. So did Bill Clark in the 92. He got kind of shuffled out in the chaos at the start. But some of this is self-preservation, Ryan. If you're going 3 wide into turn 1, back out. You can't win it in turn 1. You certainly can lose it, though.
Definitely so, and I think cooler heads prevailed. I was worried about turn 1 here at Barcelona. Didn't seem like there was much to worry about the way everybody was able to handle that. Interesting, though, Staffen got around Golzar, and it looked like he was building a bit of an advantage early, but here in the second half of this first lap, Golzar's closed that gap down again. It's under 0.2 of a second, and that Aston is looking mighty ominous as he starts to close in.
I think Golzar is a little bit quicker overall this weekend, so at least so far in qualifying. Kept nipping at Josh Staffen's lead, and now that Staffen's out front, it's going to be more of a test of who's better over the long run versus who's better in one particular lap. Across the line, Staffen leads the first go. Golzar goes to driver's left. Staffen defensive, so maybe feeling some pressure. Going to take the shorter line around turn 1, but this will set him off and give Golzar a great run here through turns 2 and 3.
And what it will definitely do is back them both up. That should help Coonan out. He's lurking back there in the orange BMW, about 1.5 seconds behind that battle up in front. But yeah, Staffen forced to go defensive here early. I think we've seen this from him in a previous race where we commented it's going to be a long race if he has to defend like this for the duration. But he was up to the challenge, as I recall it. And he's going to be tested, it would appear, because Golzar seems to have the pace. I wonder if it might be more equal if Staffen wasn't trying to be so defensive or wasn't being forced to be so defensive. But as it stands, the edge to Golzar, but Staffen has the track position.
Great battle for the top spot. Now, if I'm recalling the race that you're recalling, perhaps it was the GT Rivals race between Staffen and Brian Heitkotter.
That could be.
In the spring of 2020. There is a car turned around backwards. That's Dean Beneviest. And one of the cars running wide is Bill Strobel, and there is a bigger crash now.
It looks like 3 cars involved in that. Beneviest able to drive away from it. That's the good news there. But yikes, that was bad. He lost it there at the exit and unsighted. A couple cars around the corner just plowing into him. I think another car off to the inside as well. So 4 cars in total involved.
Yeah, Austin Murphy in the 22, Pratik Mishra in the number 7 Ferrari also involved. So a handful of cars involved in that collision, and that was not a small one either, Ryan. That was a pretty heavy impact for Pratik and for Austin Murphy. But with all that happening in the background, there are some other battles to keep our eyes on. Bill Strobel in the number 710 trying to run down Robbie Montanola. This is for 8th place right now as they come across the line. Montanola, again, was not intending to run the Lamborghini tonight, so he's having to learn on the fly and get adjusted to this Lamborghini Huracan GT3 Evo. So far, so good inside the top 10.
I'd say so. Kept his nose clean there at the start and kept out of trouble. That's good news. Looking nice and stable here through the first 3 corners of this lap. Hopping on board, keeping an eye off the windshield here. And look at the hands, very smooth here for Robbie. That's a sign he's got a car handling to his liking.
Definitely has it dialed in now. It was looking a little ragged in qualifying, perhaps running a different setup to try to find a little extra speed. But now that the race is going and the pace is back down to something more normal, it seems like it's going a lot better for Robbie at the moment. Up front, still Staffen and Golzar separated by about 2 to 3 car lengths at the exit of turn 9. And then this long run down the straightaway into the hairpin at turn 10. Again, Staffen taking a kind of a shortened, tightened entry to defend from Golzar just driving up the inside. And so far, Staffen has been able to hang on to that lead.
This is one of those tracks that you can, just with car placement, keep the car behind you at bay. You're sacrificing your exit when you have that shallow line on corner entry, but with the way that this track, the corners lead into one another, it doesn't really compromise you to a huge degree. It's not like the car behind can just do a crossover and come back on you. So I think Staffan's been pretty nifty so far with his defense and quite clever with the way he's placed the car, and really it's backing them both up, but they still have enough pace that they're pulling away from the 3 cars behind them, so that's good news. And then it puts Golzar in a really difficult situation where he's basically going to have to force an error. As long as Staffen can keep up this pace running this defensive line, it's going to be very difficult for him to get by, barring some kind of a mistake from Josh.
Which we did see happen at Brands Hatch a couple of times. Again, it was uncharacteristic, so not expecting a whole lot in the way of mistakes for Staffen. Here's a 3-horse battle for 3rd place. It's Kunin, Alexinkov, and Burleson. Kunin running for SRO Atmo, Alexinkov for AWS, and Burleson for CrowdStrike. So each of our 3 major teams represented here in this battle. Burleson all the way to the gravel trap at the exit at turn 6, finding as much racetrack as he can.
Might have been a case of a little bit of the aero wash, meaning these cars are aerodynamically dependent. They are designed to use the air to create downforce, create grip, but when you're running behind another car on a straightaway like this, they punch the big hole in the air and it sucks you along, and that's helpful. But in a corner, especially a high-speed corner, that disrupted air then is not on the wing or the front splitter or some of the aerodynamic devices, and as a consequence, you lose some of that overall grip that you want in the corners. And it looked like the front end might have just washed out a little bit on that McLaren, and it's cost him. He's lost some ground to these two who continue to fight hammer and tong over the final podium spot. Kunin's got it, but Alexinkov is starting to close in a little bit.
We spoke in qualifying about Alexinkov finally breaking through and grabbing a victory at Brands Hatch. It was the first time anybody other than Josh Staffen had won a race in the pro category this season. It's been a Staffen lockdown, but Alexinkov did break through the cracks and managed to sneak a victory through, right now running in 4th. I'm sure he'd love to get by Kunin and take the fight to Golzar and Staffen, especially now that Staffen has another distraction in the way of Golzar this week.
Yeah, I think that's right, and it seems to me that the Ferrari's got a bit more pace than the BMW at this stage in the race. At least, if he was able to get by, I wonder if he would be able to close in on Staffen and Golzar, and that's what gets frustrating here. You want to make the pass when you know that you're losing ground to the top 2, and you might, if running unencumbered, be able to match or exceed their pace. But, that said, this might be the chance. Kunin going wide there. That opens up the inside, and the way the track goes, if he can stay alongside Alexinkov, should have that spot, but he's unable to do so. A pretty good corner exit, all things considered, despite running outside the optimal line for Kunin, and that keeps the Ferrari at bay for now.
Yeah, mistake for sure for Kunin in turn number 5, and there's another one at the exit of 9. Here comes Alexinkov now, driver's right, a drag race, BMW versus Ferrari into turn 10, but this is going to be a very challenging pass for Alexinkov to hang on to. And now he runs outside of the rubbered-in line, loses the nose, and now falls into the grip of Ian Burleson behind. So once the attacker, now the hunted for Alexinkov.
That's such a tight part of the track, almost impossible to go side by side without taking a great deal of risk. And I think when Kunin covered off the inside, Alexinkov had the run, so he had to go to the outside, but there's just no way to make that work unless you're fully alongside or past into the braking zone and you can sweep down across the nose. Up front, though, the battle for the lead is heating up, Kyle.
It is indeed, and it was only about a 10th at the last timing line, 3/10 at the start and finish line now, but Staffen is certainly not driving away from Hamza Golzar. Again, these two are teammates tonight, at least running for the same team points for SRO and Operation Motorsport, but you would never guess it based on how they're racing right now. Tooth and nail going at it at the front.
That's really good stuff, and again, Staffen's being very, very defensive, and it just takes one little slip up and that opens the door, but he's not provided that opportunity for Golzar yet. Again, taking that defensive line into the corner here, and that should let Golzar get a better run on corner exit, but this is not a very long run to this next braking zone. Don't think there's going to be the chance here to dive up the inside, and plus this is a high-speed section of this racetrack using all the painted area. This corner, you talked about it in the track description, incredibly fast, just a brush of the brake and then turn in, using up all the curb, and it looks like Golzar got a run this time. Now, will he go left or right? The option is right. Can he get up alongside Staffen and make the pass?
Oh, there's a touch, and Staffen's going to run Golzar up on top of the curb at corner exit. There's still door handle to door handle. Staffen hangs on to the lead for now, uses the elbows to do it, and there's some lap traffic up ahead, Ryan, but certainly the paint being traded here early. We're only 11 minutes in. They're racing like it's 5 laps to go, but who knows? As soon as Golzar gets past, he might drive away from Staffen, so Josh has to defend this as hard as he can.
He does, yeah, less than 30 minutes left, so definitely no time to lose this spot. But here's Golzar. He's pretty close right now in the slipstream, and we've seen from Staffen he's going to make Hamza go the long way around into turn 1, but I think this might be as close as Golzar has been. Can he get up alongside under braking, keep it there?
Here he comes around the outside through turn 1, just inches between them. Now climbs the curb, another touch again. This time, Golzar on Staffen, still side by side as they sweep through 2. That's Pratik Mishra running out wide. He's going to go a lap down, but the leaders are still drag racing up the hill at turn 3. And now Golzar is even with the 23 car, Ryan.
Yeah, the key is just to keep it there, and he's done it really well. Even running a compromised line, Staffen giving him just enough room. There's enough respect there, but can he keep it to the inside? Yes. This is going to be the chance, and Golzar basically had him cleared. He wanted to track out. Staffen wasn't going to give him that space, but I don't think he's going to have any recourse here. Staffen just has to fall back in line. What a great duel. That took about 5 laps to play itself out, and it might not be done yet.
I don't think it's done yet. It took about 5 or 6 corners to shake out once it really kicked off, but now Golzar rockets to the race lead. Staffen in tow now, but not done yet. To try to close back in on braking through turn 10. About a car length between them, but Golzar's Aston drives away. It accelerates so well on corner exit. The Acura looks like it's a little bit better in those high-speed corners versus the Aston, but Golzar has the lead, and it's growing, it looks like.
Yeah, really impressive. Great duel between them, and that was a pass that was 12 minutes in the making. He was just working him over, trying to find the weakness. Finally got the crucial run out of this corner on the last lap, and that's where it all started. He was close enough into the braking zone at 1 that he was able to roll speed around the outside and keep it there. Then when the track came back to him with the next corner, turn 2, he was able to stay up alongside, and that continued then for a few more corners yet, but ultimately he kept that car in the right position, and there was a part of the track just a few turns ahead of this where there was nothing left that Staffen could do. You can't go side by side through that particular corner, and as a consequence he had to back out, and Golzar now has taken the lead.
Roman Alexeinkov again coming off that win at Brands Hatch. Carrying the flag for AWS right now. Bill Clark, Chris Slock also competing for the AWS team, but Alexeinkov at the pointy end. He's been trying to run down Gooden for a couple laps. Now some lap traffic potentially the catalyst for this reaction.
Yeah, let's keep an eye on that. Mishra is pretty fast, but this is a damaged race car. He was caught up in that crash early on. So it's a car that should have some pace. Presumably it's been repaired after that accident. So we'll see how he handles this with the leaders coming through. Got the flash of the headlights there from Zach Coonan in the BMW. He's taking a look to the inside, and I don't think Mishra's going to fight this too hard into the braking zone. Stays out nice and wide and allows the 3rd and 4th place cars to come through. Now he does split them from Burleson, who's awfully quick in that McLaren. That's going to be costly for Burleson, I think, if he can't dispose of Mishra here quickly.
Yeah, and well, Mishra's also, he's a lap down to the overall race leaders, but he is still fighting for a championship. He comes in leading the AM standings by 30 points over Ivan Lvov, who right now is in 13th place. So shake things up a little bit, and Pratik Mishra is battling for a championship position. Comes off a 2nd at Brands Hatch, a 3rd at Spa, but Lvov was 2nd at Spa and 3rd at Brands Hatch. And in class right now, I think Lvov is somewhere around the line of 3rd or 4th, so there's still lots of racing to be had, but Ivan looking to grab some points on points leader Pratik Mishra in the M category.
Well, we've seen how quickly things can change, and that's why Mishra stays at it. You never know when some misfortune might strike either Lvov or somebody else in the class that would allow him to pick up a spot or 2 and salvage a point here or a point there. 25 minutes left in this race, and that's over 5 minutes longer than the AMs are used to racing. Let's keep that in mind. We would only be 5 minutes away from the checkered flag for them under ordinary circumstances. But joining up with the pro class here tonight, running the 2 races combined, adds an extra little bit of challenge for them and might provide that extra bit of opportunity if Mishra sticks with it to overcome some of the adversity early.
There's Joe Mattioli in the number 44 Mercedes-AMG GT3 Evo, right ahead of Matt Geffeller. This is a battle for 9th, and for CrowdStrike Racing fans who followed the 24 Hours of Spa earlier this year, this livery might look familiar, Ryan.
That's right, SPS Automotive Performance, the team, and they ran a couple of cars with some CrowdStrike branding on them, but one, of course, included Colin Brown and George Kurtz, who have competed most of the season within GT World Challenge America for DXDT Racing, CrowdStrike Racing. They'll be back at it, along with third driver for the Indianapolis 8-hour. At the end of the year, second round of the Intercontinental GT Challenge powered by Pirelli. The first round was the Total Energies 24 Hours of Spa. Had a decent run there, a little bit of misfortune here and there, but you'll have that in a 24-hour race. And it's, by all accounts, it sounds like it was an enjoyable experience their second time through. This time, though, they did have some fans in the stands. It was back to something approximating the normal Spa 24 atmosphere this year.
I'm very excited for that Indianapolis 8-hour at the end of the GT World Challenge season this time around. Again, last year paired up with the IndyCar weekend. That was really neat, but again, with the reduction in fans from what we typically expect, it was a pretty quiet weekend, it seemed like. So really excited to kind of see things back at full force, as well as a field size that we're expecting to be very exciting and entertaining. So I'm really hyped for that. That'll be in October, and of course, with the fall air, the crisp fall air, it's a perfect time of the year to finish out a racing season. And what better place to do it than Indianapolis, Ryan? Your sort of home race as well, so that's got to be exciting for you.
Yeah, just 30 minutes or so down the road from where I'm sitting right now, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Such great history going back to 1909 when it was built. The original designs for the track actually did include an infield road course, believe it or not, although it took until basically the turn of the century to the 21st century to build it when Formula One came to the track for the first time. But we've seen since then some modifications to the track. It's hosted all kinds of different racing, and I thought last year the 8-hour was quite compelling. I thought the GT3 cars raced there very well, put on a good show, and like you said, we're expecting a really good grid, a bumper grid. Burleson takes the runoff there, wasn't going to make the chicane, but 42 cars, I believe we'll see. This isn't out officially yet, but that's all the indications I'm hearing, is it should be a sold-out event, with the vast majority of those being GT3 cars, with some GT4 mixed in for a little bit of extra fun for 8 hours around IMS.
That's so exciting, and to have a massive field of GT3s. And yeah, I thought the race last year was very exciting. It started out with some significant rainfall as well, which really threw everybody for a loop, I think. So excited to be back there again. So we'll see that all kick off on the GT World YouTube channel and on CBS Sports as well. So lots of good things for Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS and the Intercontinental GT Challenge. Back to our CrowdStrike Cup Virtual Racing League race. Up front, Golzar is pulled clear of Josh Staffen by 2.4 seconds. So going back to why was Staffen defending so vigorously? Well, there's why, because now he's gone.
Yeah, he knew. I think he saw the pace that Hamza had in qualifying, and then some of the early running of this race relative to what he was able to run comfortably, and Golzar seemed to have the edge. But Hamza's pushing it. We just saw him using every little bit of curbing there, and that was an inch or two away from kicking up some dust and putting yourself in a compromised position. So this isn't done yet. I think he's trying to build that gap up and therefore have a bit of a cushion in case something were to go wrong. Plus, he's got some lap traffic to deal with, and that's always an added variable that could spice things up here in the final 20 minutes.
Certainly could. Halfway mark as Golzar comes across the line. We have completed, I believe, 12 laps, make that 11 laps complete, so we're expecting about 22 to finish this race out. Staffen 3 seconds back, and Golzar last time by was about, was about 0.8 of a second faster than Staffen, so certainly picking up the pace and finding ground no matter what. He's not backed it down at all, and Ryan, is there something to be said for, you've got a 3-second lead, now you can back it down and take a risk assessment and maybe not go all the way to the edge of the racetrack?
Yeah, there is something to be said for that, I think. But on the flip side, you often hear drivers talking about when you start to back down from your natural pace, that's when mistakes can creep in because you're doing things you haven't been doing in all of your practice. And that's something to keep in mind too. But maybe is there a chance to dial it back 0.5% or 1% just to keep a little bit more margin on the exit of the corner, a little more margin away from some of these nasty curves, whatever the case may be? I think, yes, there's probably a way to do that without compromising your consistency.
Alex Sinkov taking the fight back to Kunin. This is for 3rd overall at the moment. And this is a battle that began to shape up but then sort of fizzled out, and now it's beginning again as we make the halfway point. Kunin, bright orange BMW M6. This is a car we've talked about at length in the past of being sort of one of the older chassis in GT3, now being replaced by the M4 starting next year, and we'll have, of course, at least one of those in Fanatec GT World Challenge America powered by AWS.
Yeah, Turner Motorsport has purchased a couple chassis, and we do anticipate seeing at least one racing within Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS, like you say. Really excited to see it. It had its race debut just a couple of weeks ago as part of a endurance race at the Nürburgring, and it was a bit of a delayed race debut. They were supposed to do this about a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago, and there was actually an accident in practice that curtailed that. But by all accounts, it was a nice, strong run. They ran out of fuel on the final lap, and from what we were told, that was by design. They wanted to see exactly how far the car could go and what would happen if it ran out of fuel and this and that, and so that was part of the experimentation phase in the early going of a brand new car. Still not running totally homologated, but that all should be taken care of in time for the beginning of the season next year.
I really enjoy that, trying to find out, because you don't want to bring a new car into any series where you're trying to make points and be competitive. You don't want to have any unknowns. So yeah, how far does the car go when it's out of gas? That's an important thing to know because sometimes you're going to need to maximize that fuel, and you're going to know that you're going to run out of gas coming out of turn 11 at Watkins Glen. You better know how far you can coast. I really enjoy that attention to detail.
For sure. Although here Kunin dealing with some of that lap traffic, it put him in a compromised position. He's been able to build a gap over Alexinkov, but it's come down now somewhat courtesy of the lap traffic. Burleson has dropped off of this battle to a degree as well, which is a shame because I thought it was a fun three-way fight. But what that does now is it turns Alexinkov loose. He doesn't have to worry about anyone pursuing him, and the full focus can simply be on plodding away past this BMW. He's had this view for over 20 minutes now, and he's doing a lot, whatever he can, to try and rectify that problem.
Trying to close in on Kunin in the bright orange BMW, and Kunin feels it. You can see him pull all the way to driver's right to try to break that draft, and Alexinkov is going to try to follow that hole that Kunin is punching through the air, but it looks like for now he'll just jump right back on the racing line. But they are definitely driving all out. This is a battle for a podium spot. The way the points work out, this is very advantageous to have that spot versus 4th place. So Kunin would like to keep it. Alexinkov would like to take it.
Saw a big twitch out of Kunin's BMW there in turn 2. He was able to corral it. This should be a good part of the track for the Ferrari relative to the BMW. Typically what we've seen in a variety of championships this year is that this M6 is a rocket ship in a straight line. It does the high-speed corners really well as well because of the lengthier wheelbase, but anytime we're getting into some of these low-speed corners, especially where you're having to accelerate away from a low-speed corner, I think the Ferrari should have a slight edge. The problem then becomes, how do you make the pass if you're not stronger in a straight line? Because usually your braking zones are going to be coming up to a long straightaway. He's pretty close here. Kunin does look threatened. He's taking that defensive line. So Alexinkov now staying outside, going to try and maximize his exit. Stay nice and tight through this chicane, and maybe you'll be close enough to stay in the slipstream long enough to make a move into 1.
I really enjoy how, even in Assetto Corsa Competizione, how obvious it is that the cars are handling differently. You can see where the advantages come and go for each individual car. That's something you can tell in real life as well, but the fact that they've captured it in the simulator really tells me that the attention to detail has gone into the BOP, into the weights, into the way the cars handle, how nimble the Ferrari is, how much of a brute force engine that BMW is. It's just such an interesting dynamic battle to watch. Look at Kunin, how he gapped Alexinkov here. But then this 612 Ferrari is going to close back up in the brakes and in the nimble, tight, twisty stuff. I love that that's such a visible and easy to spot thing here in Assetto Corsa Competizione.
Yeah, they nailed it. Because again, if you were just kind of looking out of the corner of your eye, you wouldn't know that this was not a real-world race. This is matching up exactly with what we've seen in so many of the SRO championships globally here this year, with the strength of the BMW relative to some of the other cars, the Ferrari in this particular instance. So this is where he closes in. We saw the lap traffic give way, and that's to Kunin's advantage, I think. I think if he gets balked in one of these tight corners like this, that might be the chance that Alexinkov needs to try and pounce. Barring that, it's going to take a mistake from Kunin, I believe. I'm just not sure how the Ferrari is going to be able to be close enough at the end of the long straightaways into the braking zone to make the move organically if he's at this pace disadvantage here in a straight line, and it appears that is the case.
A battle that has yet to reignite. Still a smoldering flame there. We'll check back in to see when that fire erupts. But for the meantime, let's check in on some drivers we haven't talked about in a little while. Jackson Rusin in the Team CrowdStrike number 87 Acura NSX GT3, running 11th right now. Not a bad race for Jackson. A couple seconds back from Joe Mattioli, so not really pushing very hard at the moment, just sort of riding around and getting ready to try to collect some team points for Team CrowdStrike. Love the livery on the car as well, with the falcon eyes on the tailpipes.
Yeah, it's a good-looking race car. And the second Evo kit for the NSX, that will be coming next season. We'll see the brand new Evo for the NSX in 2022. That will have a homologation to run through 2024. So the big upgrades from the first gen to this gen were all about driver comfort and making it easier, especially on the amateur drivers that are such a huge part of sports car racing. They're pretty confident with that part of the package at this point now, and so the next Evo that's coming is an upgrade to engine intercoolers, some changes to spring rates along with suspension geometry, and increased fluid tank sizes for a couple of the different components on the race car, and a new wheel system as well that should allow for faster tire changes. All of this will be produced at the Performance Manufacturing Center in Marysville, Ohio, and then final assembly at Jazz Motorsport over in Italy. So it's a huge part of the whole HPD Honda family. Everybody's involved, everybody from Honda themselves to HPD in California. Ooh, that was a big moment there. To Jazz in Italy. It's a big process to get this car up and running, and this new Evo kit should take what is already an incredibly strong platform and make it just that much better.
I got a chance to ride in a road-going Acura NSX a couple of weeks ago, thanks to my friend Tom O'Gorman, who had one on loan from Acura. I can personally attest that in street car form, this car is absolutely bonkers. I don't understand how it's legal to sell it anywhere. It's crazy fast. In race car form, I can only imagine once you add all the downforce and bits and bobs, it's got to just be an unbelievable car. The acceleration was something I've never felt before. It was actually hard to exhale. It was going so fast. Very, very cool. And I also think it just looks amazing. It's a very sleek car. When you talk about the supercar game, it's perhaps not the most exotic when it comes to the way it sounds, but I really do like that it shares a motor essentially with your Honda Odyssey. It's got the same 3.5-liter V6 sort of base that a lot of Honda's V6 powered cars do, and they've just twin turboed it and made it crazy. I love that.
It's really cool, isn't it? And it's proven to be a very successful race car in a number of different championships in the States and in Europe to a lesser degree. It didn't get quite as much run over there, but certainly in Japan, you'll see a lot of them running. But I think the most of the success has actually been in the U.S., both in the SRO paddock and elsewhere. And from day one, it was always really good in the rain, which was maybe a bit of a surprise to some, but that's carried over to the Evo, and now the Evo's made it a really well-rounded race car.
Battle for third, heating up again. Kunin and Alexinkov. Roman is there in the Ferrari, but stuck on the outside looking in. Crosses over at the exit at turn 10. Doesn't get the drive out like the BMW does. At least not that time through. 10 minutes to go, so we're getting down to the final moments of this, and Alexinkov feels that pressure. and trying to put the 300 offline. Takes a look, not enough to spook Kunin.
Yeah, I think that was exactly what he was trying to do. That's not a place you really make that move, but maybe if you put the fear that you might make that move into the driver in front of you, put that fear into their head, that could open up the door for them to make that crucial mistake that lets you through. Aleksenkov to this point has been patient. He's been remarkably consistent. Just hasn't found that chance, and the BMW in a straight line, so strong, as we've talked about a couple of times. That's just a little extra armor, isn't it? It guards against most of the challenges, and it even helps you escape a slight mistake. And we'll see the Ferrari pull up close, but the chance to actually get alongside an overtake, it's hard to come by when you're at a straight line disadvantage.
Got to get creative, and you've got 9 minutes and 18 seconds to figure it out. And Roman is a very talented sim racing driver. We've seen him win races in the past. We've seen him get very aggressive in the past. Big slide for both those cars.
Mm-hmm.
We heard Josh Staffen actually message while he was on the front straightaway that there's a ton of tire degradation. And that's why he's dropped way off the race leader. But Aleksenkov and Kunin also fighting very loose race cars right now. That grip level has fallen significantly.
Interesting. Well, that's something to chronicle here, and who stays on top of that best for the final 8 minutes and 45 seconds. That could be the difference in this fight. And don't sleep on Burleson. He's closing in. Lost some ground in traffic, but this McLaren, slowly but surely, is getting closer. And as the red mist starts to set in on Aleksenkov, if the frustration starts to get in the way, this might be the car you want to be in. This might be the hot seat. We'll see.
Whoa, big miss there for Burleson on the left-hander in the chicane. But up the front, the third place battle. Here comes Aleksenkov to driver's left at the exit at turn 17. That was not going to work. Backs out and now hits in the slipstream, and Kunin weaving wildly all over the racetrack to try to break that draft. But the pressure has continued to mount, and I think Kunin is now feeling like this might be inevitable, that he's going to get past. He's just going to have to stay wide, keep that car in front of the 612 Ferrari.
And that's what it's all about at this stage for Kunin. He's been stout in his defense, no question about that. I think you were onto something, though, when you said Aleksenkov might need to get creative, try something unexpected. Maybe right here, do you throw it up the inside? He thought about it, but Kunin shut the door preemptively. That's going to bring Burleson even closer now into the mix. So for Aleksenkov, as if you weren't already anxious to get this move done, now you really want to get it done before you got to contend with Burleson's McLaren there at the rear view.
You can hear the tires screeching through Aleksenkov's car at corner exit. He's sliding the rear quite a bit. Big moment there as well. Kunin is doing the same, so they're losing that rear tire grip, and the more that you slide, the hotter those tires are going to get, Ryan, and the hotter those tires get, the worse the problem's going to be. So it's just a never-ending loop of making your race car mad at you. And so maybe taking a lap or two to back off and cool everything down wouldn't be a bad idea. That's something that Burleson's been able to do for the last couple laps, and here he is now in the fight with a fresher car than perhaps the two in front.
I think you're onto something there, but now where can he make the move? We've assessed the strength of the BMW relative to the Ferrari, but where does the McLaren fit into all of this? I'm not sure we've got enough data to say. We'll find out here in the next 6.5 minutes.
Three-car fight for third place. Up front, it's Golzar and Staffen, separated by about 10 seconds. Then it's a long ways back to find Kunin, Aleksenkov, and Burleson. This is the closest battle on the racetrack. Geffeller and Montanola fighting for 8th, but the three swapping for 3rd. That's what we're watching as Burleson takes a swipe at Aleksenkov, but no dice, can't get by here. Kunin has about a 4-car length advantage over the Ferrari. Then it's only 1 car length back to Burleson's bright red McLaren. BMW M6 beginning to stretch the legs again and pull away.
Well, I don't think Burleson and Kunin are officially teammates, but they might as well be. This is like reinforcements arriving to help Kunin out. All of a sudden, now that Aleksenkov has to play a little bit of defense, he's not quite as strong on the attack. He's actually dropped off of Kunin a little bit here as of late. But we got some lap traffic coming up. Let's keep our eyes on that, because that can definitely throw a wrench into the spanner.
I'm watching my timing screen here from the broadcast booth, and every driver is running a half a second to 3 seconds slower than their best lap of the race. That's how much this track has fallen off. The track is now 38 degrees Celsius, again over 100 degrees Fahrenheit just ripping these virtual Pirellis apart, especially when everyone's been romping on them for 35 minutes. So there's not a lot of grip left to be had as the three-car fight for third closes in on, I think that's Dean Benavides, number 75 Ferrari, who was involved in an early spin.
That's right. So what might have been for Dean, he's got a pretty quick race car, but very wisely gets out of the way, lets these three continue to fight it out. Just had the misfortune early in the race, and we never quite got to see his full potential, I'm afraid. This is going to be interesting because, once again, Aleksenkov is close, but not close enough. Burleson got a bit of a run the last time, and I thought he might try and take a lunge up the inside, but he didn't. This time he's not as close, and he's not able to stay as close, so they'll stay just like this, 3, 4, 5 on the leaderboard, all running right together here with 4.5 minutes to go.
You remember what's on the line again. You want that podium spot because of the way the point structure pays out. It benefits you a lot more if you're standing on the podium no matter what step. You just want to be on it. So the only driver who has that podium spot right now is Kunin. With 4 minutes left to defending, he's just got to keep doing what he's doing. It's been working, and Aleksenkov and Burleson now fighting amongst themselves are going to make that pass even more challenging just because they're too busy dealing with each other to really gang up on the 300 car. Regardless, Ryan, I think the McLaren and the Ferrari, while similar in drivetrain layout and engine type, make speed in different ways, almost too different perhaps, to work together to get by the 300.
Yeah, you might be onto something, and I'm not sure how willing to cooperate they are anyway. They're in this to win it for themselves. We will see. This might be a chance here. Aleksenkov is close. Kunin's going to close off the inside. You really got to be all the way up alongside here in the braking zone, and Aleksenkov just doesn't really want to do that because that opens the door then for Burleson potentially to slide it up the inside. So that's where, when you're playing defense and offense simultaneously in a compromised position.
Ivan Lvov just had a big moment. He was the one that brought out the caution that you saw at the top of the screen just for a moment. Drops down to 15th overall and closer to Pratik Mishra, who was involved in a collision earlier. Remember, those two were battling for the points championship in the AMP category. So with Lvov having some issues, that brings him closer to Mishra. 2 minutes and 50 seconds remaining. And here goes the defense from Aleksenkov and Burleson on the attack. And Aleksenkov having to play both the defender and the defendee, that is going to be a challenging place for him to be, I think, right now. This is not where I think you want to be, either chasing or out front in front of the two that are chasing you. I don't think you want to be anywhere in the middle.
No, I agree with that, although I will say I think he did get a bit of a benefit from the slipstream off of the BMW. That might have helped to keep the McLaren at bay to some degree. It's amazing how close these three have run, and I don't know if we've seen any contact from them. It's really remarkable how clean the racing has been. Still 2 minutes for them to prove me wrong, but I've been impressed with how they've raced one another. This has been a great fight throughout the whole race.
I was going to say, we've still got a couple laps left. But we'll hold out on the contact thing until the checkered flag is out and we got the cars loaded back up on the transporters. Who knows what can go on the last lap as everyone's going for every last bit. 12 seconds from Stafford up to Golzar, so we're not watching the battle for the lead. Golzar's got that pretty well in hand at the moment, as long as he can finish on fuel. But again, Kunin's best defense is the offense on the 300, that big motor under the hood, and there's the touch, and all three cars get together. The 300 spins, Aleksenkov goes through, and here comes Burleson to pass both of them.
Well, I have to say, Burleson certainly was not at fault in any of that, so it's kind of fitting that he gets through. Yes, there was some contact, but that was because of everything that happened in front of him. Now we'll see if he can hold it. Now we'll also see what Bill Clark can do, because he took advantage of that and was able to jump through. It's a real shame, though, because that was such a good battle. Hate to see it in that way, especially for Kunin, who had driven a really nice race.
Yeah, drops from 3rd to 6th in that exchange. Now Bill Clark up to 5th. Burleson takes over the podium spot. This is the final lap for the race leaders. Golzar right now working his way through the middle portion of the lap, so we're still watching the 3rd place fight. Burleson in command of it. Aleksenkov, who was trying to get it, basically just had the drivers on either end of him switch spots. So he's still got to get by a car to grab the podium position.
Yeah, Burleson definitely was in the right spot. I kind of hinted that might be the case. I'm sure he wishes he got through that without any contact and potentially some damage to the front of that race car, but even still, not a bad job of being opportunistic. Now he's got to consolidate it, keep Aleksenkov behind, and Aleksenkov back in that same position where he's trying to be aggressive, but he's also got to worry about the Porsche that's playing at the offensive side of things right behind him.
So while that all happens behind them out front, it's Hamza Golzar, who fought and battled Josh Staffen for a handful of laps early in the race, but eventually got past him. And once he got past him, Ryan, he took off. Hamza Golzar, in his first appearance of the season, is going to go out there and beat the driver who won the first 3 of the first 4 rounds, and Hamza Golzar wins CrowdStrike Cup Virtual Racing League, the pro category at Barcelona. Josh Staffen, 13 seconds back, will be second, and now for third place, Ryan, this is the battle we've been watching.
Yeah, it's running out of time here, though. I'm not sure, barring a mistake, that there's much that anybody can do at this stage in the lap. We'll keep a close eye on it, but at the moment, Burleson, Johnny on the spot, able to make the move, avoiding the sliding cars, slipped through without too much contact, and I think he'll hold him off.
Ian Burleson for CrowdStrike Racing picks up a checkered flag and a podium. Third place for Ian Burleson's CrowdStrike Racing machine. Aleksenkov fourth. Bill Clark grabs the top 5 in all that chaos. Robbie Montanola top 10. Congratulations to him. And the AM category, a bit of a shakeup with Lvov beating Mishra. That's going to close the championship points in the AM category by a bit. So we'll check back in on October 20th to see how that all shakes out. But Hamza Golzar, Ryan, beats Josh Staffen, and not by a small amount. That was a really phenomenal performance.
It was, and it all started in qualifying. That last flying lap, he had lost the pole. We thought it was all Josh Staffen, and then all of a sudden we see Golzar jump right back to the top. Didn't get the best start to the race, it has to be said. Staffen was able to take advantage of that, came around the outside into the first turn and grabbed the lead, but he couldn't hold it long. He put up as much of a defense as he could. Ultimately, Golzar just a bit too strong, and once he got around, he drove away.
12.1 seconds was the official margin. Ian Burleson, third place, again for CrowdStrike Racing. Roman Aleksenkov picking up the top spot for AWS. There's a look at your final order. Pratik Mishra, again, leading the M Championship, comes home last tonight, so that's going to sting. Ryan, we've got one more round in our points-paying season. It's going to be October 20th at Circuit Paul Ricard in France. That track, you know, it gets a lot of bad rap across the motorsports community, but I love how it races here in ACC, and I cannot wait to have a championship race there. It is such a great place to go fast. There's a lot of really fast sweeping corners, an opportunity for overtaking, and that means that we're going to have our championship fight come down to the wire, I'm sure, especially in that AM category.
Well, we've seen some good races there in the past, and some of the other races we broadcast together, Kyle. I expect that to be the case once again. Like you said, some really high-speed parts of that racetrack. That Mistral Straight is just massive, and the way that the corners flow into one another, it's not as easy to be as defensive as you saw here at Barcelona. You might have some switchback going on, so that should be fun. Looking forward to that as we close out the year.
Closing out the year on October 20th. Closing out tonight, though, it's Hamza Golzar, victorious overall in our abbreviated evening. Again, we mixed together both the Pro and Am classes into one 40-minute race, and that 40-minute race is complete. So for the CrowdStrike Cup Virtual Racing League, round number 5 of 6, Golzar is the winner, Staffen, Burleson, the rest of the top 3. Again, if you'd like to find out how you can join, you can head over to crowdstrikeracing.com to learn how you can become a part of this. And, of course, make sure you check out crowdstrike.com as well and operationmotorsport.org to learn about Operation Motorsport. Kyle Heyer alongside Ryan Marine. We're going to see you next time here for the CrowdStrike Cup Virtual Racing League on October 20th. I will see everybody back here on the CrowdStrike Racing YouTube channel this next weekend from Sebring International Raceway for CrowdStrike Racing's coverage of the Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS, following along with the CrowdStrike Racing team. Ryan, final thoughts on Barcelona before we close out the night?
Good race, nice clean racing. I liked having everybody together, and quite frankly, the lap traffic didn't play into it the way I thought it would. It was very clean, very respectful, and enjoyed it definitely, all 40 minutes of it. I thought it was a good format.
Great battles all around, and with the fall now descending upon us, the end of the racing season is near for both the North American SRO Championships as well as our CrowdStrike Cup Virtual Racing League. One more round. We'll see you there on October 20th at Paul Ricard. We'll see you next time.